The question is that this motion be agreed to, and I call the member for Bowman.
Well, Deputy Speaker, talk about yesterday's debate. The Community Support Program argument has been around for 12 months, and just last week we've actually had a Productivity Commission report deliver one of the most extensive analyses into the childcare sector in Australia, and it's absolutely absent from the debate today. Why would we detain this place for half an hour to debate the topic of childcare and ignore the obvious, that this is a coalition government prepared to look after Australian families and access to childcare, and we get a motion from an opposition member whom I do regard about last year's issue of community support programs. This has been around for 12 months and could have been debated, litigated and relitigated on any day of a parliamentary session, but we get it immediately after the Productivity Commission report is dropped as a clear smokescreen that this is an opposition with no idea about the future of childcare, no idea about the affordability issues created by their own reforms, no idea about the variable access to childcare services that exists in this country between inner metro expensive childcare provision to outer metro, in many cases oversupply and glut of places, and then regional areas where often setting up childcare is not even viable. They are the big questions that we commissioned the Productivity Commission to consider, and that's what we're hoping we could have a national debate on, this very complex area where we effectively now recognise that childcare is the first part of education. The problem is we invented government departments before we realised just how important childcare is. Well, we know that now, and we have an education department struggling to support childcare, a federal government unsure what more it can do apart from paying rebates and benefits, and then ultimately realisation that you can't raise the quality of childcare interventions without increasing wages, and there's not an easy way to pay parents a rebate and guarantee that high-quality childcare is adequately remunerated. So the challenge here for the Productivity Commission, not an easy one, let's be honest, was to look at these four areas of access, affordability, quality, and of course wages and remuneration for young childcare educators, and to get all of that right. It won't be easy, but dabbling in the community support package, the one area that was being frankly misused and abused, is not the way to look at this challenge. What we had were family daycare centres doing what was obvious, applying for this money because they could, applying because there was a Labor government unable to make a tough decision on community support, and basically get twice as much as was fair. I mean, let's remember they're already paid $5.47 per hour per place compared to $4.10 in a long daycare. Then they're applying for an extra 70 cents to $1.42 on top of that. So clearly we're not addressing the issues of lack of access, we're not addressing the issues necessarily of flexibility, we're not seeing any new centres being set up where they're not viable, and we're seeing nearly 70% of the community support program taken by just 10% of the providers. How is that fair? I'd say to the opposition, tell me about all the childcare operators that set up in regional and remote Australia under your government thanks to intelligent use of this package, a big zero. They can't point to that evidence at all. So the community support package just became a cross-subsidisation mechanism because it was available to family daycare centres, even though there was another one around the corner. These were tough decisions that a Labor government would never make. This was the seepage of money away from where it's meant to be spent, for the families who most need it, into whoever filled out the form successfully. That's not going to lead to a better childcare system. I'm grateful that we've gone to the Productivity Commission and said, give us a platform to start the debate. It's not the government's model, it's the Productivity Commission's report. It's just a starting point. But what is obvious today is that this is a federal opposition unable to engage in that debate in any sort of meaningful or constructive way when they come here and simply relitigate last year's issue about a community support program that they're unhappy with because they knocked on a couple of doors and found that someone or somebody complained they weren't getting enough cross-subsidisation anymore. Well, tell you what, the sector is way more important than that, and to have a federal opposition trying to stand up for the continued support of family day care in areas where it isn't utterly essential, regional, remote, or where otherwise the service is not viable, is simply a Labor Party that isn't interested in the complex needs of Australian families. Because they want to know, A, that the most disadvantaged families in Australia can get access to childcare. B, that many of those poor parents who otherwise wouldn't be getting those children ready for school will have a chance of some sort of formal preschool education. 3, if you're working shift work or long hours, you want to know there's a service in that remote area, but the misuse of this community support program ensured there was not. That's what the Labor Party let down in government. They've continued to oppose it from their position in opposition.
I thank the member for Bowman for his contribution.